Chapter 35. Cedric Remembrance and Talking to Dumbledore. In the middle of the night. Who are you and what do you want? Kill the spare. No! Cedric! I shot up out of bed, gasping, with tears falling down my face as I felt Severus's hand rub my lower back. As I wiped my face, I felt him sit up as he looked at me, concerned. Are you okay, Miranda? Did you have a nightmare? I nodded my head and responded, Yeah. I turned to look at him. I'm sorry to wake you. No, don't be sorry. It's fine. He leaned and kissed my forehead and didn't say anything as he simply wrapped his arms around me. I didn't realize I was slightly shaking until he said, You're shaking, love. It's all right. Just relax. I lay my head on his chest as I tried to calm down enough to go back to sleep. After a few minutes, I looked up at him as he looked down at me, and he placed a hand on the side of my face. I believe that I didn't have to say anything for both of us to realize that I was traumatized by everything. Can I admit something, Severus? Of course, love. I know I act brave and all sometimes, but honestly, Voldemort scares me a little. I mean, he immediately wanted to kill Harry and probably me too. I know, my love. The bravest act of all is facing your fears, and you did, Miranda, by facing him. I was mostly trying to protect Harry, but at the same time you exposed yourself and almost admitted your feelings towards me. I'm sorry. I put my head down, but he gently raised his fingers to my chin. Don't apologize, sweetheart. He frightens all, but you and Potter did what you could. No one is going to believe me or Harry, Severus, that he's back. Dumbledore and I do, and let us worry about that, okay? But one day at a time, okay? He knew I was still worried and frightened, but despite it all, he tried his best to comfort me. We lay down as he held me close against him, and we eventually fell asleep with him rubbing my hair. Middle of the day. Well, I'm certainly not 100% prepared for what we have to do today at all. I had a nightmare in the middle of the night of Cedric getting killed. I spoke to Harry privately earlier, and he told me that only since I was there with him had he been struggling too, and I wasn't the only one with nightmares. He was glad, though, I at least stayed with someone and that I wasn't alone because, as it turned out, he was worried about me and how everything impacted me. It reminded me that I haven't seen him since I ran out crying, which is probably why he got worried, and it made me feel bad that he worried about me instead of himself. But now I'm in the calming room and sitting beside Hermione by the fireplace. I hadn't spoken much yet to Hermione and Ron about everything, really. I knew they were trying and would try to just be there the best they could for Harry and me. However, and I hate to say this, they won't ever fully understand the depth of the situation compared to me or Harry, or even fully believe that he is now out there somewhere. Hermione knows well enough to know when something is wrong, but I don't want to talk about it. And during those times, she just stays by my side through it all and holds my hand. Just like she is now. I sighed to myself as Harry and Ron came down, standing in front of us, and Hermione let go of my hand. I looked up at Harry as they held out his hand to help me up. Without saying a word, I grabbed his hand as I got up and sadly looked at him. Harry and I both knew we felt the same and were completely traumatized. Ron held out his arm as Hermione took it and got up as well. We all walked arm in arm to the assembly room for the remembrance of Cedric. For the first time in ages, it was really silent between us. All of us couldn't really say much since, Harry and I saw it happen right in front of our eyes, and Ron and Hermione knew this, and it had an impact on us, but we didn't know what to say or do. We were all in shock that this had happened. I spoke directly to Harry as we were walking since I was beside him. So, Harry, I was thinking about maybe I could ask Professor Dumbledore if he'll be alright if I could spend the night with you tonight. Because he let me spend the night with Snape last night since I was too shaken up to be alone. What do you think? No, I'll be alright, Miranda. Thanks, though. Harry, I don't think that you should be alone right now. It might help because I know you've got to be feeling worse than me. You know bloody well you can't keep things hidden from no matter how hard you try. You and I have to stick together on this. He simply nodded his head in response, not saying anything back. I guess that meant a yes for him, but I wasn't really sure. Eventually he whispered to me, only if you want, and if Dumbledore will allow it, I won't say no. I smiled softly as he finally gave me a tiring smile back, as he knew I wasn't going to take no for an answer, but also knew that I was right. Slowly but surely, everyone was gathered around in the great hall, and I noticed how the tables were gone, and we all stood together. Now, it was time to listen to the speech that Professor Dumbledore was going to give, sitting in a chair. Today, we acknowledge a really terrible loss. Cedric Diggory was, as you all know, exceptionally hardworking and intellectually fair-minded, and most importantly, a fierce, fierce friend. I think, therefore, you have the right to know exactly how he died. You see, Cedric Diggory was murdered by Lord Voldemort. The Ministry of Magic does not wish me to tell you this, but not to think so, I think, would be an insult to his memory. I glanced at Harry as Harry looked back. Now the pain we all feel at this dreadful loss reminds us, that while we may come from different places and speak in different tongues, our hearts beat as one. In light of recent events, the bonds of friendship we made this year will be more important than ever. Remember that, and Cedric Diggory would not have died in vain. You remember that. And we'll celebrate a boy who was kind and honest and brave and true right to the very end. I was trying hard not to cry, but I couldn't help the tears that were slowly coming down my cheeks emotional again. Dumbledore's words spoke directly to my heart, almost as if he knew that's what we all needed to hear. Harry and I couldn't say anything to each other, but I have a feeling that darkness lies ahead, just waiting for us. I wasn't sure if Dumbledore would exactly say that Voldemort killed him. I suddenly felt Harry grab my hand as Hermione looked at me and wiped my tears away. I smiled softly at them, feeling thankful to have friends like them in my life. They saw that I became fast friends with Cedric this year. Harry, Hermione, Ron, and I held each other's hands. I wish Cedric didn't have to die like that. He was being protective. Well, I'd like to think so anyway, but I'm not sure what anyone else thinks. Cedric and I didn't get to be as close as I wanted, but we had a good friendship where we loved and cared. I felt anger suddenly building up slowly inside of me. I wondered why Voldemort had to come back. Cedric would still be alive, and Severus and I could be together in peace. But no. Voldemort has to try and take over. He has to have all the bloody damn power and be proud of it with his evil self. We stood in silence. I looked up at the ceiling. I'll miss you, said. I love you. I looked at Dumbledore, and he can see that my eyes were full of sadness, and he can tell that I had a lot on my mind. He nodded his head towards me and had a look in his eyes that said we'll talk later. I feel glad that even though he's the headmaster of the school, he cares about students like me. That evening, after sensing that Dumbledore wanted to eventually talk to me, I finally made my way into Dumbledore's office, not knowing what would happen. After walking in, I smiled softly as I saw Severus talking to Dumbledore, and I made my way next to him. Severus grabbed my hand and kissed it lightly as I sat down beside him. Dumbledore looked at me and asked, "So, Miranda, did you need to tell me something?" We looked at each other as I realized it was probably about everything, especially since I hadn't said anything about what had occurred, but I told Severus last night. I nodded my head as I began to tell him the talk I had with Voldemort and how I stood up for Severus. Severus held my hand as he knew that I was still shaky. I know it hasn't been long, but it's been on my mind, and it felt good instead of hiding it, especially in the hands of those who care. After I was done, Severus let go of my hand, and Dumbledore reached out and grabbed my hand as I tried not to cry. I know you're afraid and traumatized. You were brave, Miranda, running after your friends when you sensed they were in danger before I did. You and young Harry were both very brave. Professor, when I looked at Voldemort, there was a look in his eyes. It was the same look from that night when my parents were killed. I'm afraid he wants to kill me too, like he wanted to kill Harry and tried to. Miranda, there are going to be dark and difficult times ahead, and I'm sure that you can feel it by now. I realize I put you and Harry both in terrible danger. I really am sorry, Miranda. He carefully let go of my hand as I couldn't respond, but nodded as a tear fell down my cheek. Headmaster, if I'm being honest here, we're all blindsided by everything, including Alistair Moody, Severus added. It was silent until I looked at Dumbledore as he softly asked, "Miranda, are you afraid that he'll kill you and Harry?" I nodded my head in response, and Dumbledore looked into my eyes. "I won't let that happen. Trust me. As brave and loyal as Harry is, Miranda, I'm sure that he wouldn't let that happen, as well as Severus." I looked at Severus as he nodded in agreement. Dumbledore continued, "So don't you worry, okay? Everything will be all right." He grabbed my hand as I looked into his eyes, and I know he meant every word that he said. I sighed as I smiled softly. I can't help but think that the three of us seem to have gotten close. "Wouldn't you say so, sweetheart?" I looked at Severus as he responded while smiling at me. "I do think that this is what has happened, love." I swear he knows how to make my heart jump, mostly when he kisses me. I think he knew what I was thinking as I continued to stare at him not so innocently. Dumbledore was sitting at his desk as I was standing up, and I couldn't help but notice that he looked slightly amused. Severus got up smirking. "Like what you see or something, sweetheart?" He gave me that sly smirk as I blushed. I gasped but also laughed as I couldn't believe he really said that in front of Dumbledore, out of all people. "Severus," I responded, laughing as he leaned and kissed my cheek. Dumbledore and Severus laughed as Dumbledore responded, "Miranda, I feel that we have gotten close, given what happened to your father and stepfather." My back was against Severus's chest as I looked at Dumbledore confused. He continued as he and Severus started to glance. "I think we can arrange a little something. Since it's possible that you may not have a father figure anymore, would you like me to step in to be your father figure when needed?" I smiled and responded, "I would like that, sir. Thank you. After all, you look after me and Harry like a father in a way." He chuckled. "Ah, good. It's settled then. You can call me by my first name if you want." "You don't mind?" Of course not. Just as long as it's not out in school public, if you know what I mean." "I understand. Thank you. This means a lot." Severus, Albus and I chuckled, and I felt happy and safe. Dumbledore's point of view. I watched as Severus kissed Miranda's forehead. "I think you do need a father figure, love, and no one would be better for it than you, Headmaster." I smiled and nodded my head in agreement as I looked at the two of them, and if you ask me, yes, while it isn't appropriate, I'm happy to see this happiness in front of me. I've never seen Severus this way. Miranda does deserve happiness after everything that she went through. As long as they're in love and want to be in a relationship, I'll look the other way. Overall, it does seem like the appropriate thing to do, you know? Her biological father is dead, and there's a chance that her stepfather will be also. I'm sure Minerva would agree to this movement as well. I tried to do the same for young Harry as well, to be there. After all, at her age, she does need some sort of father figure in her life to help guide her and simply be there. Also, given what's recently happened, it is a must. I must admit that I've been growing to love Miranda like she was my own daughter. Somehow it happened, but I hope that when the time is right, she'll find out my true feelings. However, there is one thought hanging in the back of my mind. I looked directly at Severus, and he knew what I was thinking. If Miranda would find out, I'm afraid she would go beyond that she did before, and I honestly broke my heart to see her like that. Maybe in the future sometime I'll personally tell her myself, but not yet. She's not ready for that type of news. She's been emotionally through too much. I'm not revealing anything, but it'll have to be one thing that I keep from her. It's for the best. Miranda's point of view. So, about being with Harry. The answer is yes, Miranda. I permit it as it is something both of you need. I smiled softly. Thank you, sir. Severus leaned and kissed my cheek. Come by my personal room before you go to bed, love. I giggled. Don't worry, baby. I will. I smiled as I watched Severus simply say his goodbyes and leave Albus's office. When he was gone, I noticed that Albus was kind of silent, but I was glad that he decided to be my father figure, as I certainly need one, probably more than I think. I looked at him, and he motioned for me to come sit on his lap. I was confused and puzzled, and I didn't want to even question it as I got up and did so. Once I did, he wrapped his arms around me and pulled me in for a hug. I'm lost on why this is happening, but I truly do need a tight hug more than anything. I ever so slightly smiled and hugged him back. We didn't say anything, and that was fine by me. It was a peaceful moment, and I felt loved by Dumbledore. Maybe he cares deeply about me, after all.